Good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you to our session this afternoon called Winning Strategies for Enterprise Migration to Cloud UC. As you may have noted in the keynotes this morning, this is a theme that's becoming more and more prominent, especially as we move up market with a more complex collaboration experience. Hybrid deployments and transition from premise to cloud over time become increasingly important. This is what this session is about. And we're privileged to have two speakers with us today. First, we have Erwin Lazar from Nemertis Research. Erwin is Vice President and Service Manager and has been working in the enterprise collaboration space for a long time, I think he said, for well over 10 years. And it's really great to have you, Erwin. Thank you. And from Cisco, we have Susie Liam. She's Director of Product Management. Her main responsibility is HCS, which is one of our key platforms. But she will talk a bit more broadly about the capabilities that Cisco has in this area. So hopefully between Erwin setting up the market intelligence, the market insights, the business rationale for these transitions, and Susie giving you some examples of what we can do, this would make it an informative and productive session. So thank you all for coming.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon. I think we're the last session before you guys break for dinner. So appreciate you being here and joining us here in beautiful Hollywood, Florida. I flew into Fort Lauderdale last night. So again, hi, I'm Erwin Lazar, Vice President Service Director with a company called Nemertis Research. And my role here is to share with you some of what we're seeing in terms of the enterprise market, the folks that you are selling to. So our organization, we spend our time going out and gathering data from the users and buyers of technology. We look at what they're deploying and why, how they're making their buying decisions, what vendors they're selecting, what strategies they're selecting, and really what are the things that correlate with successful technology strategies. So what I'll try and do and share with you over the next 20 minutes is a snapshot of what we're seing as far as the enterprise market and their attitude toward cloud communications and how they're trying to look at cloud in conjunction with on-prem services. So I'll skip, since I already went through the intro. So a couple of things that we see as we're talking to end user organizations is, interestingly, a big shift in IT. It's a lot of similarities in what you're trying to accomplish going out and selling to the end users, as well as what the end users are looking to accomplish as they think about technology. And kind of core among this is we're seeing IT buyers shifting from desiring a commodity service. I go out, I buy voice, I buy meeting applications, I buy contact center, to I need to understand what the business value is of what I'm delivering. I need to be able to affect positive outcomes on my business, whether that means improving collaboration, streamlining operations, reducing costs, finding new revenue opportunities, avoiding disruption, and so on. So the key challenges are really the same from the buyer and the seller side, and it makes for good synergy, a good win-win discussion. So we want to grow revenue, we want to improve the experience of our customers so that we can more effectively, more easily deal with customers, and improve our customer loyalty, customer upsell opportunities, again, reducing costs, and competitively differentiate. How do we differentiate from the next disruptor that comes in and changes our marketplace? So what we found is that organizations have spent a lot of time over the last couple of years investing in digital transformation. It's been kind of that key buzzword that we see in almost every marketing literature in the tech industry, and certainly it resonates when we're having conversations with C-level executives. And the way we define digital transformation is it's taking technologies that are emerging in the market, and I've got a couple out there, cloud, which you've certainly heard quite a bit about and are very familiar with, mobile applications, Internet of Things, increasing analytics, leveraging AI where possible, and so on, and figuring out what can we do to with those technologies to improve a business process, create some new value, create new product or experience. So examples might be looking at, from an insurance company. And these are real world examples from a research study we did last year, where we're now moving to filing your own claim through your mobile phone versus having to send an agent out to do an inspection. Your car reporting in and saying, here's what's wrong with me. I bought a Chevy truck about 2.5 years ago. Every month I get a status email with a system check from the vehicle that was performed, and it tells me, your tire pressure is low, or it's time for an oil change, or things like that improve stickiness with the vendor and maybe cause me to go there for service versus doing it myself or going somewhere else. Leveraging sensors to improve in business operations. So some event triggers a communication session that then pulls in necessary people, triggers a workflow, and so on. And so as we think about spinning these gears, we apply the technology, we hopefully improve, we identify some process that we can improve, and then at the end of the day, we measure some improvement in value. Again, whether that's reducing costs, increasing upsell opportunities, avoiding disruption, increasing productivity of our employee base, better customer outcomes, and so on. So we find about 75% of organizations have a digital transformation strategy underway. It's happening across the board. It generally isn't a real centralized approach. It's happening in different, especially in larger organizations, happening in different lines of business where they're saying, we need to go off and figure out how emerging technology is going to change our business, or what can we do to affect change, and how can we leverage that. And as they think about it, the technologies that we find that correlate with success are the ones I have listed here. These are the ones that companies who are more successful in the digital transformation strategies, meaning they've achieved measurable value, typically within 6 months is what we define as success, are leveraging more than those that are less successful. They're looking at cloud, and they're looking at how do I embrace cloud technologies to be able to pull in the latest and greatest features that are out there today, things like APIs and advanced analytics, AI that we talked about earlier. So they're investing in analytics, understanding what the data that they have is telling them that they can leverage for improvement. They're investing in collaboration. They're going away from, if you're still collaborating via email in today's world, you're probably running in all sorts of barriers to be an agile organization and be able to react quickly to change. They're investing in customer engagement, and especially in customer engagement channels. So things like mobile engagement, video engagement, chat engagement, ways that we can improve the way we engage with our customers. And lastly, they're investing in mobility. So these are kind of the core technologies that we see organizations really putting their money into as they think about their digital transformation strategies. And to kind of echo some of the points, we looked at collaboration technologies, unified communications and collaboration. Found a little under half of organizations are increasing their spend on collaboration. About 37% that are flat. About 11% of those that we interviewed didn't really understand, or weren't really sure if they were doing that. Just depends on their role. And about 6% that were decreasing. And I should say that this data set comes from about 625 companies from North America, Western Europe, and Asia. About 70% of the organizations are above 2,500 employees. So it's typically looking at global enterprise organizations that we gather data from in our studies. And then we defined a success group, and we defined a couple of things that we looked at, things around utilization, measured business value, and self-rated success. And we tried to say, okay, what makes for organizations that are successful as they think about their collaboration strategy, and what are the characteristics of those? And we found that those that are increasing collaboration spending tend to be more successful, as you can imagine. They're thinking about collaboration more strategically than those that are either flat or that small percent that's declining. And so when you look at the emerging applications that are out there and the things that I mentioned, everything from AI to improved contact center, to IoT and so on, in many cases you'll find that those are really cloud-first technologies. A lot of what we heard earlier in the keynotes, and a lot of, I'm sure, what you're seeing in that marketplace, whether it's leveraging an AI engine, that's kind of a difficult thing to build on-prem. You usually have to go out and embrace the cloud. So in the contact center, we find more than 20% of organizations now using cloud contact center, with a significantly higher percentage that are in evaluation phase today. Team collaboration applications like UC1, Cisco WebEx Teams that we've talked about quite a bit, using now. So 28% that are using now. These are almost always cloud-first delivery models, and again, you've seen plenty of that. And then meeting applications, about 67% that are using cloud applications for video or meeting applications. So things like WebEx meetings is, again, a prime example. And all of those emerging features, all the really cool, fun stuff that allows us to succeed at digital transformation, generally coming in cloud first. Now, the problem you run into is, well, let me go take a step back. So why are companies embracing cloud? Going back to the previous slide, all those percentages of companies that we said were moving to cloud, it's less and less of a cost discussion and much more of a business discussion. So agility now in our 2018 study was the highest reason that people told us that they were moving to cloud. It wasn't necessarily, it used to be cost. It was 2-3 years ago, it was, well, we're going to save money going to cloud. Now it's, I can't get the features I want at the speed I want with the flexibility I want unless I move to cloud. So we do see cost as still a big factor. It's the second most important factor. Perception of cost savings is the third factor, but that's come way down. Again, it was 50% people saying they were going to cloud to save money in 16. Stayed about the same in 17 and then fell considerably in 18. And that big change has been more around agility, things like features, want to shift IT into more strategic roles are all driving organizations to the cloud. Now the challenge, of course, is there's still a lot of on-prem. There's a lot of TDM out there. A lot of companies that have Cisco UCM or competing solutions in their on-prem worlds that still need to consider how do I take advantage of the features that are out there when I may not be able to justify taking fully depreciated systems that work really well today and moving those off into the cloud. So about 42% are running on-prem for at least half of their endpoints. Okay? So what we find is a big shift toward hybrid architectures. This chart here shows about, for those of you who might not be able to see the numbers, about 30% that are all cloud, meaning we're moving to an all cloud environment. All of our applications go to cloud. As you'll see in another chart, that tends to be a little bit more heavily weighted towards smaller companies. About 38% that are hybrid, meaning we have on-prem and cloud, and that's kind of where we are today. And about a third that are all on-prem. And we're seeing that shift from all on-prem to either all cloud, again, more at the smaller end of the market, or hybrid at the mid to large size. And a quote that we captured from one of our interviews captures, I think, pretty much the essence of what we see. We're going to move about 80% of our applications to the cloud, but we've got a fully depreciated voice and video infrastructure on-prem that we can't yet move to the cloud. So the challenge and the opportunity becomes, how do you mate those two? How do you build that hybrid architecture that allows for on-prem and so on? So the drivers for hybrid, we want to embrace new applications. We talked about some of those, team collaboration, contact center, and so on. We want to embrace some of those new features that are out there, AI, virtual personal assistants, the Alexa type applications, intelligent bots. We want to focus on moving staff out of running systems when we can and into being business liaisons and driving effective change within organizations, and still cost. Cost still comes up in a lot of the discussions that we talk about. So we've got a number of different use cases where hybrid really makes a lot more sense, or it can allow you to accelerate your digital transformation strategies in a manner that is maybe a little bit less disruptive than if you say, I'm going to get rid of everything and move it to cloud. So if I'm setting up remote workers, either at home or small branch, I can potentially have those connect into a cloud service that is integrated with my on-prem offering versus having to roll out an extension of my on-prem system to those small branches where I've got to put a branch survivable gateway, firewall, router, whatever other devices, SBC, and so on, out at those locations. And I can deliver new features to the branch offices like team collaboration that we talked about. And same, again, both for branch offices and remote workers. If I've got offices that are operating in small locations where it may not be cost effective to purchase local PSTN services, I can potentially pull that connectivity into the cloud and use the cloud provider's PSTN access, again, as a potential cost savings. And then on customer facing, if I want to add an AI-powered bot, if I want to add advanced analytics, if I want to add new emerging channels into my contact center, again, leveraging cloud-based services and mating those with my existing contact center infrastructure may accelerate my ability to do that and more cost effectively than if I have to wait for a complete wholesale migration from on-prem to cloud. So a visual representation of what a hybrid cloud might look like is shown here. And so we've got a branch office with a video system and a phone that's connecting into our cloud provider. Our cloud provider is hosting meeting application, team application, calling applications, contact center, but they're also federating that with our on-prem. So in this case, maybe we just have calling on-prem, but all those other applications we want to take advantage of, we're using in the cloud, and we may be embracing some of the federation capabilities that are out there, so that if somebody wants to make a call from on-prem into a meeting application, that goes over the direct connection that we have to the cloud provider. But we see how we might have the mobile workers that are connecting into the cloud for all of their functionality, customers that are connecting into the cloud for their contact center, and maybe our on-prem people are still leveraging the on-prem applications for voice, video, and presence, and team, and so on. So as you think about the business case and what you want to evaluate as you're looking at helping organizations with evaluating hybrid versus on-prem, is how can they minimize cost of investment? How can they take advantage of those emerging applications, like some of the ones you've certainly seen today? And what's the right mix? Again, maybe for some companies it makes sense for them to say, I'm going to go 100% cloud. For others, it may make sense for them to say, what, you've got that fully depreciated environment, we're going to let you keep that. Maintain calling, say, for example, but all those other features, meetings, teams, et cetera, we're going to bring into you through the cloud, and we're going to make that work. So again, as I mentioned, for the types of companies that are out there, this chart, I know probably a little difficult to read for some of you in the back. What it shows is the blue bar are small companies, less than 250 employees. The yellow bar is 250 to 2,500, and the green bar is 2,500 and above. The kind of the key takeaway here is if you look at the hybrid column, the third group of bars to the right, is over 41% of large organizations are hybrid today and will likely stay hybrid for a while longer. As you go to the small organizations, they tend to be more all on cloud, about 33.4% that are all on cloud, smaller percentage hybrid, smaller percentage on-prem. And so you can see where the sweet spot is. It tends to be slightly more in the mid-size or hybrid, but definitely in the larger enterprise. Above 2,500 seats are considerably more likely to be looking at a hybrid approach. And as you think about evaluating a hybrid strategy, there's still a lot of interest in TCO. So having the TCO calculator as you're going out to sell to look at, I know you want to reduce complexity, you want to have better integration, you want to take advantage of some of the features that are out there. You have the constraints of IT budgets, even though UC spending is increasing, overall IT budgets are always still somewhat constrained. So your opportunity is to deliver flexible solutions that can go to your customers and say, look, we can sell you an entire cloud service, we can sell you a hybrid solution that only gives you the features you need, or we can sell you a fully on-prem if that's what customers are looking at as well. We find that most companies are looking at going to a single provider for all of their UC needs. They're looking at integrating wherever possible to improve the customer experience. So having that hybrid solution that it integrates is an advantage to, we're going to give you a meeting application from vendor A, calling application from vendor B, team application from vendor C, and none of those are really integrated. The opportunity there is to reduce task switching. So I'm not constantly moving between applications, but I'm doing all of my collaboration within a seamless platform. And then as we think about what makes for a strategic provider, so as you're going out and trying to sell into these providers, what are the customers asking for? And they typically, as you'll see in a second, they look to service providers to be their partners, and they want those partners to be strategic. So where they tell us, we asked, do you have a strategic partner? And if they said yes, we said, what makes that partner strategic? If they have the best technology available, if I can look at them and know that they're a leader, then I consider them to be strategic. The areas where they tend not to score their strategic providers real high, which I think are the opportunities for growth, is understanding the business, being able to walk in with customized solutions that are reflective of the needs of that individual business, and then proactively providing suggestions, coming in and saying, hey, we see similar companies are benefiting from these improvements. We recommend that you implement. I mentioned cloud services from MSPs are most common versus companies going and buying it themselves or going to VARs at this point. They tend to look for a set of providers who can offer them not only the technology, but the implementation, management, and increasingly training. getting people to start to use the new and emerging applications that are coming in the door, and then also development, integrating API-based communications into existing business applications. So wrapping up with some recommendations, again, I think it's not a one-size-fits-all world as you're going out and selling into the enterprise market. We see significant opportunities for you to deliver hybrid services that look at where the customer is today, what they're hoping to accomplish, what their digital transformation needs are, what their appetite is for the emerging applications that are out there, and how do they transition to be able to take advantage of those emerging applications at minimal disruption, minimal cost, and maximum flexibility. So have that opportunity to support them to transition to cloud, maintain protection where possible for pre-existing investments, again, thinking about cost consciousness, budgets, and so on. Shift the licensing model. I think you saw the flex plan, service provider flex plan licensing that was talked about earlier. Having that ability to say, you know what, we're going to move you to a subscription licensing model now, and we'll move your platform to cloud when it makes sense. And then finally, looking at where there are opportunities to continue to add value. So APIs, training, application integration, management, and so on are all real good opportunities for value add. So with that, I think we're going to skip the question part till the end, and I will turn it over to Susie.
So we have this. Okay, thank you. And again, my name is Susie, and I have been working for Cisco for a long time, for 18 years. But a big majority of my time, I spent a lot in the enterprise business. So thank you for that presentation. And this is literally going to show the use cases of what Erwin just shared. This is exactly what we are seeing in our market. So as you know it from the presentations that you hear today, this morning from the keynote speakers, that for us to move into the mid-market and the large enterprises and moving on-premise customers to the cloud, it does take a lot of work. The migration is not as simple as we would like it to be, and a lot of the factors come in. It can be financial, it can be the readiness of the IT group itself, it can be just different application integration that also comes. So the transition zone becomes a place that does take time. Some customers can move through this one in a period of like 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 18 months. Some other ones will be there for a good 4 years, 7 years sometimes, or will actually be in a hybrid mode in a long time. So as we go through and see this one, a little bit of recap just to make sure that we are on the same page. Cisco has on-premise business, and Tom shared this one also from his slides today. We have 120 million users on-premise. That is mind-boggling to see how many that we have on-premise. And on the partner-hosted for HCS and BroadWorks, total together we have about 25 million users. But even then, we still have 100 million on-premise that is on a journey to move, to join the family of the 25 million that have already moved into the partner-hosted. And we also have a different delivery model, which is the Cisco Broad Cloud for service providers that want to consume it as such. But in between these two alone, the business is huge for us to capture the market as they are moving into the cloud. Now, what we understand again that call manager, we can still have that one unified call manager, communication manager on premises, meeting servers, contact centers. A lot of these servers are on premise. And when we move to the cloud, it can be an HCS that is partner hosted by you guys. It can be BroadWorks that are partner hosted by our SPs. And it can also be on the Cisco Broad Cloud platform. But the journey itself and the transition zone and the hybrid aspect in the middle, that's what we want to talk about. What are some of the things that we see? And actually, it's very consistent with the presentation that you just hear. So again, on this side, we see a lot of the on-premise that are not moving at the same time. There are some part of it that we will start moving some of the branch offices. So most of the headquarters, they are fully integrated with different CRMs, be it a payroll system, any one of your local integrations. It may actually be very complicated with a local contact center or with a lot of things that are quite complicated on the headquarters side of it. So what we see in the middle, we see some of the easier one, the branch offices, they start moving into the cloud quicker, and they start going into different providers as well. And they also have a lot more of the PSTN connectivity issues that are kind of hard to be handled by most of the IT. So we see some of those moving, and at the same time, we also see, consistent with the research that we saw, WebEx from Teams and meetings, almost all of them starts being consumed from the cloud. So as you see also, a lot of our offer that we have in the Flex offer that we will see also a little bit, WebEx meetings, WebEx Teams, that is consumed from the cloud. There are some branch offices that move quicker, and there may be some of the headquarters that will be lagging behind. That's a very typical journey for most of our customers, especially the larger enterprises. However, as we go through this transition, and especially when we say that the transition can be years, for some of them it's more than 18 months. It can literally be 4 years. Most of the customer base that we are dealing with, because they are very large, it does take them years. But we want to start giving and having the experience itself to be very consistent. So some of the experience that will make it consistent is common meetings and collaboration platform, making that consistent throughout the journey. That helps people, because people doesn't really need to know from the user experience part of it, from the user point of view, whether it is actually consumed from the cloud or from the on-premises. So we start by having the user experience from the meetings collaboration to be common throughout the transition zone. Calendar and directory services. That also is another point of hybrid. A lot of the calendar and directory services may still see and may still be on-premise because they want to keep a lot of the user data for privacy purposes on-premise, but we want to start consuming that one also from the cloud. And keeping that consistent throughout the transition zone will make things easier for the customer to migrate. We also have dialing plans as we start moving the branch offices away to cloud, or certain parts of the headquarters, different region of the larger sites and larger offices. Having a common dial plan also will make things much easier throughout the whole transition zone. Some of the workflow and application integrations also, if we can keep that one to be more consistent throughout the transition zone, that will make things easier. So these are not a comprehensive list, but these are some of the things that we have to start thinking if we want to start migrating large enterprises. There are certain things we want to start standardizing first before you start moving the people, and by the time you start moving them from on-premises to cloud, some of these experiences and the heavy-duty administration can be kept consistent throughout the whole journey, and that helps a lot. So, and again, this is not comprehensive, but those are some of the high points. The other part of it on why some of the hybrid actually stays for a long time is total cost of ownership challenges. Phone and CPE replacement, for some departments, it is a department-based budget, and because of that, not everybody amortizes the phone at the same time. This particular department might be done in amortizing it for another year, another one may actually be there, not there at all, so that it may take another 2 years, 3 years before they can actually find another budget to buy the endpoints. User retraining cost. Some of these require some training costs. We may go into a different user interfaces, and as we go do that one, then we have to retrain them. That is a cost also. Migration costs, some of these application and integration points may change as you move from on-prem to the cloud, and PSTN breakout cost. So those are some of the reasons why hybrid may literally take a long time. And all of these are not necessarily a limitation of the platform. It's just the way the business goes. It's just the way the cycle of the budget cycles usually goes. So the hybrid may actually be longer than what people anticipated. And again, the good news about it, in Cisco right now, the flex plan, it is flex because we want to show that this is going to be a flexible model from on-prem moving into hosted, moving into hosted or cloud. But these flex literally give you a journey for you to move from on-prem to hosted or to cloud. So if you see this one, WebEx meetings, that is consumed from the cloud. Cisco Broad Cloud Calling can be consumed from the cloud. Customer journey platforms, that's the contact center, that can also be consumed from the cloud. They are all on the same icons. Now the meeting server itself can actually be partner hosted, like HCS, like BroadWorks, those are partner hosted. Contact center can also be partner hosted. This is some of the examples on the HCS, and I will go into the examples from Broad Cloud later in the next few slides. Jabber, UCM Jabber, some of those, if you see some of those icons, that can actually be on-prem. But the good news about it is the Flex plan, the Cisco Flex plan, allows all of this commercial to happen. So you can buy an on-prem license for Flex plan, you can buy an on-prem contact center license, you can buy a CJP, which is hosted in the cloud. You can also buy a Flex hosted HCS license or BroadWorks license that will be consumed by the partner. All of those under the same partner agreement, all of them under the same legal agreement, and all of them under the same commercial. So the Flex plan is created to allow all of this hybrid to actually come. We do really understand that this hybrid is like what more than 1/3 of the market may be stuck in hybrid for a long, long time. And this is why we created this particular Flex plan and the commercial that we have. Now, the two primary transition stories that I will cover from this one is call manager examples, moving into the cloud calling and collaboration, and we will look at some of the one that is more greenfield from any PBX, CPE also moving into the cloud. So we'll move into a little bit more of real situations. So again, as I mentioned, that the unified communication is on-premise. We have over 100 million users. So as we move this one to the cloud, HCS and whoever that has been hosting HCS, this becomes a very obvious choice for us to have, because it is the same experience, it's the same phone, it is also the same gateways, and you can have, you don't have to retrain a lot of the situations here. So a lot of this is just moving the deployment into the cloud. So as you can see this one, we can leverage HCS for specific CUCM transitions. This is one use case that we want to look at. Now, as we look at this one, there are multiple different ways to transition this one. The first step that we can do is start moving them into the commercial and the legal agreement of Flex. So people that have a call manager, unified communication, I have to get used to saying it, unified communications, on-premise part of it, they can convert these licenses into a Flex plan. That will be the first step that we want to do. By that time, you are in the legal and the contract agreement and the commercial of Flex as you are going to move into the cloud. And then after that one, then we can start moving little by little. We can move the provisioning aspect to the cloud. We can start moving the monitoring aspect to the cloud. We can start moving the support group into the cloud. But we can move that one a step at a time whenever the customer is ready to move into the step. So this becomes a journey itself. It is about building bridges. It is not for us to say that you can move to the cloud in one time. So as you relinquish little by little the workloads from the on-prem to the cloud at their own pace, at their own comfort level, and also at their own budget level, then you can eventually move into the cloud. But these are the journey that we are setting up at this point. Then you can see this one also from the next slide, that on the HCS case part of it, we have the meetings and the teams in the cloud, and that is the same with the BroadWorks as well. The meeting and the teams are in the cloud. The Cisco HCS can be partner hosted. However, as you can see this one, the calendar service may still be on-prem. We support that integration, that you can have a calendar and an integration of a calendar service still on-prem. We also support a model where the directory is still on-premise, even though it is all of the things that you saw from Larissa's demo, the meeting itself and then the schedule of the meeting server itself can actually be, the schedule of the meetings for the calendar directory can still be on-prem, but it can actually be consumed from the cloud, and it can be fully integrated. The WebEx Edge will bring connectivity into a local Breakout and a local PSTN, and also some of the IP phones can also still have, IP phones definitely can be on the prem, and then we have Survive SRST, which is how to use Survive for recovery aspect of it, also can also be on premise. So we can have a very hybrid situation here. Many people will move the calendar and the directory services later because they also have the email servers on-prem, or they even have the file server. Sometimes they want to keep it on-premise because they have more private and privacy of the data, that they would feel more comfortable by keeping them on-prem. So some of these scenarios these are like, I will say that a lot of the migration for the call manager and the HCS part of it is on this kind of path. This is a very common situation that we see in terms of the hybrid situation. And on the BroadWorks part of it, we can also see that on branch A, for example, it can be BroadWorks that is hosted by a partner. On the branch B can be a remote office, which is maybe consumed from the Cisco BroadCloud calling. A branch C can be a contact center that is a CJP that is in the cloud. However, all of that may be connected to a headquarter that may still run on an HCS or a third-party PBX, or it can also run on Unified Communications Manager part of it. And again, the WebEx and Team and Meeting can be consumed from the cloud. But if you can see this one also, again, consistent with the data that you have, a branch office can move to the cloud much faster. It may even come from multiple different providers. The CJP may come from Cisco, or it can also be a contact center in the cloud, a different kind of provider. And then for international office, part of it, it may actually come from different partners. Not all of them come from the same partner too. So this mix is happening in real life. This is happening as we go right now in real life. And and this is another example and another use case where we can have a BroadWorks, or even for an HS also, to be connected with the Meraki. So what Meraki do is an SD-WAN, and is basically a managed Wi-Fi, but the managed Wi-Fi itself, all of the contact points and all of the access points are on-premise. So this is also another mix and hybrid situation that is available. Now, I bring out the example of the Meraki, not because it is just Meraki, but Meraki is a Wi-Fi, but there's a lot of things that also is a paging system or an intercom system, or things to integrate and to manage the door for a building. All of those surveillance also, a lot of those becomes something that will always be on-premise, because those are, the doors are on-premise, the physical surveillance are on-premise, the access points of a Wi-Fi are on-premise. There are things that will always be on-premise, while we have those connected into the calling server in the cloud. So again, what I'm trying to highlight here is the hybrid scenario is actually very real, and it may continue to be so. Therefore, Cisco on our side, Cisco knows that we are building bridges. The flex plan that we built is a way for us to build these bridges and to build this flexible combination. The hybrid solutions are critical to our customers. We have a flexible architecture that allows all of these different scenarios, like the use cases that I talk about, to be supported. And the flex plan, again, legally, commercially, it is in one plan that will protect your investment and making it easy for you as you move into the cloud. Okay, so these are the last slides, and then let us open this one up for any question and answer session.
If anybody has a question, please raise your hand, and I'll bring around a mic.
Do you have any recommendations for interconnecting a branch office to a headquarters when we cannot win the headquarters with SIP trunking because they're under contract? So like we win a smaller branch office, they're on our service. The headquarters is still with another provider, but they want to maintain some type of interconnectivity.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations about how to accomplish that?
Yeah, so there are different ways to make this, happen. But for example, like assuming that you have access to the SIP trunking, you can actually go into the branch offices to access the SIP trunking of the headquarter. In that way, then their PSTN agreement will be the same. So you are routing all of the calls into the headquarter and get that one into one agreement on that side. That's one example. But I think the one that people usually will see first is when you start having an interworking with the dial plan. So a good dial plan strategy where you can feel like it is all in one company usually becomes the starting point for splitting the thing into a branch office and a headquarter deal. The dial plan usually is the first one that you will see. The other part is if you work with a lot of this by having the meetings, assuming that you will be using meetings and Teams, and that also can be something that you can use, because we can say that, hey, do you want to have the same experience for the meetings and the Teams? We can still bring the same experience for the Teams and the meetings for the branch office and not. But basically trying to show that the user interfaces, there are things on the user interface that you can make common, especially the one that is happening that are usually cloud first anyway. So showing that the user interface can be the same, that's usually the key. So meetings or contact center or Teams to be the same. And the next level down usually is going to be the dial plan from the admin part of it, assuring that that can be done. Then the third one will go into the PSTN. Can I save the same, or can I use the same wholesaler that I use for the PSTN and force route the call into the headquarter? Usually working those three and balancing among those three will give you the justification for it to actually be under two different providers for the headquarter and the branch office.
Any other questions?
I think you mentioned, Bobby, in the previous slides, that UCC spend is increasing by 18% as a mean increase you mentioned. Do we have any more insights into where that... all right, let me repeat. So I think in one of the previous slides, you mentioned that there's a mean increase in UCC spend by 18%. Do we have more insights into where that spend is going?
Yeah, it's typically to add new feature capabilities. So conferencing is a big one, especially video conferencing. That's been driving a lot of the spend. Team messaging, team applications a little bit less at this point. They're still somewhat new in terms of penetration, growth, and willingness, I guess, to pay. So mostly it's been around, I would say, video. I'm trying to think of anything else. That's really the one that comes to mind that we saw in our data.
And in terms of segmentation, do we know, is that more into SMBs or enterprise or?
I don't have the increase in spend broken down by size. We've seen it, I think, anecdotally more in the larger enterprise market. Question over here.
Hi, you mentioned that agility you had a big jump as a reason for spend and cost is not as important. Do you see that to be a continuing trend, or once companies get over that hurdle of they have that agility, they're looking for other reasons?
I think the initial drive to go to cloud it will continue to be, how do we refocus our resources around taking advantage of what we can buy versus having to build it ourselves. Just, again, for speed of market, when you're talking to companies that are just living in constant fear of being the next Blockbuster and being disrupted, how do I take advantage of the technologies that are rapidly emerging in the marketplace to improve my business so I'm not disrupted? So the only way to do that then is to go to cloud and to be able to do it quickly. So that's sort of where we see agility driving. I think once you see companies get to cloud, they start to put a little bit more of a focus on how do I drive down the cost of there's still a management layer of even when you go to cloud services, training, and so on, network connectivity. We see a lot of interest in SD-WAN as a means to drive down the cost of cloud, taking advantage of you mentioned the cloud federation model to again, more effectively connect your network to the cloud provider. So there is still an element of cost that starts to become more important once you've made that transition in. One more in the back.
I often find that anywhere north of a few hundred users and IT administrators are pretty reluctant to go with a voice solution that doesn't do some type of corporate directory integration for automation of creating and deleting users. In the BroadSoft portfolio, can you guys confirm that could be developed in BroadWorks and HCS, but not in BroadCloud? Is that accurate? like BroadCloud doesn't support Active Directory integration, et cetera?
Yes, correct. That is, at this point, BroadCloud does not support that yet. But
Okay.
it is in the roadmap for it to be supported, because we understand that that needs to be there. In the HS platform, it is supported.
And do you also find that to be a sort of barrier for entry above a certain number of users?
It will definitely be, yes. The minute we start going into the mid-market space, it's a must,
Table stakes? Okay.
yes.
Any others?
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.